what an honour it is to introduce our in-studio guest this morning, our great champion, Rod Laver. Rod, good morning to you.
Hi, thank you, Ross.
Hey, we've both enjoyed reading your book. Is this your first autobiography?
Yeah, for the first, I did a 1969 year with the second Grand Slam.
Yeah.
I did one with Bud Collins, and that was something we enjoyed, but it was only that one season.
And did you just decide, I want to get everything down and I want to record it all? Was that the motivation?
Yeah, it's sort of a combination. The opportunity to do it was part of it. Pelham Books were there, and they had felt that this was a good time to do it, and so I thought, well, it took a year, but we got through it.
It's really fascinating. We've got a million questions to ask. Let's just go rat-a-tat. At the start of the book, you describe an Australia that doesn't really exist anymore. Some of the things that struck me, that if you went to a cafe and you didn't have a collar and tie on, you wouldn't get served.
I guess that's true.
And that's Australia is gone, isn't it?
Yeah, and wearing a hat.
Yeah.
All those things have they've moved on.
Well, I was a little kid when tennis was going through a golden era, which included you, but fellas like Hode and Rosewall, etc. We were preeminent in tennis in those days in the world. What happened since then?
Well, I think competition around the world came about. You had certainly the Newcomb and Roach, that era, with Rafter, but the play then now has gone to, with the advent of the new rackets, the big tall people from Serbia.
Yep.
They're very athletic and very talented, and so they were the ones that got the new rackets and perfected their game on them. And of course, there's all the countries now.
Yep.
Have had people that have come up, unfortunately, Australia has been lacking, until probably now. I think that we've got some good young players that are showing in the junior ranks that they're really at the top, and that's where you've got to be to progress into the Open era.
One of the things that struck me was from your early days, is with your early coach Charlie Hollis. It was sort of assumed that you would go on and play tennis at the highest level. That it was part of it. Did that just come naturally? Oh yeah, I'll go and play tennis. I'll end up playing at Wimbledon.
I didn't see it that way quite, but I think I guess if tennis is your passion and you enjoy that side of it, I think that's what you need is that opportunity which Charlie Hollis gave me and my dad gave me, traveling around the junior tournaments to get that experience and expect to go on further. And of course, Harry Hopman found me when I was about 15, 16. And so that really started the ball rolling for me. And, I guess I had the potential, had a good eyesight on the ball, being able to, motor down and pretty much everything on the court. And then it was a matter of, did you get enough experience and have you played enough matches?
What would Charlie Hollis do with the Bernard Tomic?
I don't know. Because I don't think he didn't teach him the strokes.
Right.
Because excuse me. But when you look at Charlie Hollis, all the people he coached, they all looked the same.
What was the motivation in those days as an amateur to play tennis from your point of view? I mean, it involved a great deal of effort, a great deal of travel, and there was no money in it.
No, there was no money in it, but it was the opportunity to play and travel around the world, being able to see Wimbledon, get to those tournaments, get a chance to potentially win it if you're good enough, and that was sort of the motivation, and I think the big motivation was playing Davis Cup for Australia. And because it's not as big now, but it was big, and now it's not quite as great. But when you see Hode and Rosewall at I think it was Sydney when they had about 24,000 watching the tennis, and just thrilled with being able to. The US and Australia were a great competition. They played a lot back in those years.
You missed the 6 years, of course, in between your Grand Slams because of the amateur status issue. Modesty aside, that is 6 years times 4 Grand Slams. That's the opportunity to win 24. How many would you have won?
Well, what you got to do with that, you got to bring everybody back into the amateur world.
Yep.
And you got to put Hode and Rosewall and Gonzalez and everyone in there.
Yeah.
And so that would have made a big difference. But it gave me the chance without them to compile the career that I've got. But if you're prepared to fight, like I did in the amateur world, you'd be doing the same thing with more people in it. And I think the competition makes a better player. And I think when you look at guys like if it's Frank Sedgman and Ken McGregor and that group that came along, you've got a lot of competition, and that breeds the success. And I think in a way champions breed champions. When you see that competition, juniors see it, and they want to emulate what they do. And you see Nuke and Tony Roach playing with that group coming up. There was a group come behind them, but unfortunately they didn't go all the way to the top.
The great feature of tennis in those days, it seems to me, was was sportsmanship in those amateur days. Sportsmanship seems to have disappeared with a couple of, I think, probably American players who started tactics and that sort of thing, throwing tantrums and things. Do you think that the money is probably responsible for a lack of sportsmanship in tennis these days?
Well, I guess you could bring that in. It's the competition, and that breeds sometimes a little bit of anger that creeps in. They brought that the machine that it gauges the lines, and that used to be bad calls. If it was John McEnroe or Connors, being tough on lines people, but now they can't be that way because the electronic line system tells you, yes, it was a quarter of an inch out.
Hard to be mad at a machine. But in your early days growing up, you said you always thought you'd be a better player than one of your brothers because he had a bad temper. And you thought to yourself, well, if I can control my temper, that'll make me a better player.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I said it, but I think my two brothers played very well. We played a lot of, not juniors, but they got into the open ranks when I went to the juniors. So, at 4 or 5 years older, they were, great competition for me. And of course, I think, the anger and, not bad temper, but just the anger of not playing as well as you think you could. And that's the thing that, you've got to, some of the today's yesterday or my era time was Ilya Nastasi used to try and just talk to you. And, I remember when he played me, he'd say, "Come on, old man, you can get this one." and so that of course made me angry. I wanted me to throw my racket at him.
With your status in the game, with your book, Rod Laver, a memoir, with your status in the game, you could have chosen anyone to write the introduction to the book, the foreword. You chose Federer.
Yeah, I did. Well, he's to me, he's pretty much the greatest player in the game today. Although, of course, you've seen Nadal come along and is bigger and better than he has in the last. But you got to look over the last 10 years, and Federer certainly was way up there. And I just like the way he plays the game. He's able to his forehand, backhand, single-handed backhand. But his court position, his anticipation of all is just ideal. It's just ideal. The way he plays, that's the way I felt I played that way. In many ways, but he's just a great individual. He's an asset to the game, and he's just unbelievable the way he's moved around the world, helping a lot of people.
This is going to sound strange, but one of the I enjoyed the book. One of the things I enjoyed the most is that I've tried to tell this bloke sitting opposite me, because I grew up in Queensland, that when I grew up, my father drank rum and milk. One of the first things I read in your book was that your father used to drink
rum and milk.
Rum and milk. Do you get back to Rocky much?
I was there 3 days ago.
Right.
Went up there just purely to renew and see, I guess, my old house that was moved. But we searched it down and found it, and then of course seeing the fact that the tennis courts are there, and they've improved that whole facility a tremendous amount from what it was.
We're trying to think, and I know we have to wind up, but we're trying to think of tennis stadiums in the world that are named after people, and we could come up with Rod Laver Arena and Arthur Ashe Stadium. That must be a heck of an honour.
No, I feel it's the crowning jewel of my whole career. And but of course, you've got Margaret Court has got her name on the tennis, at the arena
at the show court. Yeah.
So she's involved in Billie Jean King is involved at the one at the US Open along with Arthur Ashe.
The book is called Rod Laver Memoir, and it takes you on the journey of your life from an Australia that doesn't much exist anymore, having to wear a collar and a tie to get served in a cafe, right through to your life as you currently live it. It's a fantastic read, and we're so grateful for you coming into the studio this morning.
Thank you. Well, I enjoyed the chance to put it all on paper, and it was a great feeling for all of us to go through and remember some of the things that is in the book.
The book is called Rod Laver, a Memoir. Thanks, Rod.
Thanks.